In this video, we are going to look at Laowa 15mm f5 cookie lens. In the SLR era, some people came up with the term pancake lens for very thin 40 to 50mm lenses. Because of the short back focus distance of mirrorless cameras, it's very hard to make useful lenses for them that are as thin as a pancake though. Hence Laowa came up with the term cookie lens. This does not only sound more realistic, but also pretty cute, and the latest addition to this cookie lineup is the Laowa 15mm f5. Usually, new features are reserved for expensive top-of-the-line products, but this lens already marks a very important point in Laowa's history. Let's have a closer look. This lens was tested on a 42-megapixel Sony a7R II. Sample images with Sony a7 III, Leica M10 and Nikon ZF. You can see this review as a text-based blog post on our blog site. I will put a link to the blog post in the description below. Most of the sample images can be found on separate websites in high resolution. I put the links to the high-resolution sample images in the description below as well. This Laowa 15mm f5 cookie lens comes for several mounts. We had a look at the E-mount and M-mount version and the Z-mount version. All of them have the same optical formula with the same angle of view and same filter diameter, and also the same number of aperture blades, but the size and weight can vary. In addition to the mounts that we have looked at, the lens comes also in Canon RF and L-mount versions. I'd like to thank Laowa for sending us this cookie lens free of charge for testing purposes. Handling and build quality. The focus ring turns exactly 90 degrees from the minimum focus distance, which is 12 cm, to infinity. The focus ring has a rather low resistance, and personally I would have hoped for a slightly higher one. The lens focuses slightly behind infinity, which is normal for modern lenses because of mount tolerances. The lens seems to be made from a mix of metal and polycarbonate. All the writings are engraved and filled with paint. The lens is equipped with electronic contacts which not only transmit EXIF data to the camera, the aperture diaphragm is also controlled by the camera. There is also a USB micro port for potential firmware updates. When you turn the focus ring, this will automatically bring up the focus assist. In Sony cameras, the in-camera distance scale always shows 4 meters as distance, as there is no elaborate distance encoder. Also, the Z-mount version features electronic contacts to communicate with the camera, and the lens comes in both black and silver versions. Furthermore, the lens features a rubber gasket at the bayonet. This does make the lens a lot harder to mount and unmount though. A tiny rectangular bayonet-type lens hood is also included. I don't think it will do a lot to reduce lens flare. These hoods rarely do with ultra-wide angle lenses, but it does sure look cute. It can also be attached with the logo facing down if you are not a fan of hoods with a flashy logo. The size difference compared to the much faster Laowa 15mm f2 is significant. More importantly, the size difference compared to the only slightly faster 7 Artisans 15mm f4 and Nisi 15mm f4 is just as big. The M-mount version is rangefinder coupled from 0.7 meter to infinity, but also focuses down to 0.12 meter. Resistance is a bit higher compared to the E-mount version I had, and it rotates about 100 degrees from 0.12 meters to infinity. The helicoid is very steep at closer distances, which makes precise focusing a bit harder. The focus ring also features a small focus tab at the bottom. As is was the case for other Laowa M-mount lenses like 9mm 5.6 and 15mm 2.0M, there is a click stop at 0.7 meters for you to notice that you are leaving the rangefinder coupled range. The aperture ring is all manual and features full stop clicks. It rotates about 45 degrees from f5 to f22. We can also see holes to 6-bit code on the mounting plate. When on camera, the actual lens is similar in size to Voigtlander VM 15mm 4.5 version 2. That one comes with a non-removable hood, which I had personally cut off. Vignetting. The Laowa 15mm f5 is a tiny ultra-wide-angle lens, and what all tiny ultra-wide-angle lenses have in common is not so tiny vignetting. But actually, I was expecting worse than this here. Don't get me wrong, 2.6 to 3.2 EV are a lot, but this is not worse than what we have seen from the Voigtlander ultra-wide-angle lenses. Even the Sony FE 14mm 1.8 GM, which is way bigger, only shows half a stop less vignetting at shared apertures. Some small ultra-wide-angle lenses show slight green color cast in the corners of the modern Sony BSI sensors. With normal subjects, this is rarely noticeable, but when taking pictures of a snowy landscape or an overcast sky, it might be. I didn't have any issues with this Laowa 15mm f5 though. None of the sample images have been corrected for color cast. For M-mount users, I also have some good news here. The similarly small Voigtlander VM 15mm 4.5 Mark II has some issues with the asymmetrical Italian flag color cast on M10, and even more so on older digital M cameras. But this is luckily not the case for this Laowa lens. I cannot guarantee that there will be no color cast on the older M8, M9 or M240 models though. Infinity sharpness. I have used a lot of compact lenses, and I can't say that they have usually been overachievers in this category. And also with this Laowa lens, I would have hoped for a bit better mid-frame performance. All the 15mm E-mount lenses I reviewed so far, for example Laowa 15mm 2.0, 7 Artisans 15mm 4.0, Nisi 15mm 4.0 and Voigtlander 15mm 4.5 Sony E version performed better in this category, but they are also significantly bigger and heavier. The performance is not bad in absolute terms, but if you are looking for the highest possible image quality on a high-resolution camera, this is probably not the lens you are looking for. Sharpness at close-up distance. Laowa ultra-wide-angle lenses are known for their generous minimum focusing distances, and this is also the case here. Thanks to the floating element design, the performance is also surprisingly good at these distances. If you stop down to f8 or even to f11, the across-frame performance is really good, something only few lenses this wide manage to achieve. Flare resistance. As always, evaluating flare is a complex matter since you can get any lens to look bad if you push it hard enough, and a slight change of scenario can affect results a lot. As is the case for many lenses, with the sound outside the frame close to a corner, there is a specific position that leads to a huge flare. This is a stage scenario, and not something you should be afraid of encountering regularly in the field. But with the sun close to the center of the frame, I also encountered double ring flares at all apertures. I found the M-mount version to be more prone to this issue. Comma is actually very well controlled. I had a look at my reviews of the 7 Artisans 15mm 4.0, Nisi 15mm 4.0, as well as the Voigtlander 15mm 4.5e, and to my eyes, they all show a similar performance in this category. The M-mount version on Leica M10 actually shows slightly less comma at f5, but there is of course also a difference in resolution between the Sony A7R II and the Leica M10 that might make the E-mount version look worse here. The Voigtländer VM 15mm 4.5 Mark II performs similar as does the Laowa 15mm 2.0M at shared apertures. Lens distortion. This Laowa 15mm f5 cookie lens is not part of Laowa's 0D product line, and we can clearly see why. There is a noticeable amount of wavy distortion. If I intended to use this lens for architecture shooting, I would definitely create a distortion correction profile for it. Bokeh. If someone was asking for a lens to create a shallow depth of field, my first recommendation would not be a 15mm f5, but because of its 0.12 meter minimum focusing distance, you can actually create some bokeh when taking pictures of small objects. Sunstars. No sunstars at f5 and well-defined 10-stroke sunstars between f5.6 and f22, as we have also seen from other recent Laowa ultra-wide-angle lenses. Chromatic aberrations. There is a noticeable amount of lateral chromatic aberration. The one-click correction in Lightroom is still doing a good job though. As this is a very wide and rather slow lens, longitudinal chromatic aberration is nothing to worry about. Conclusion and sample images. The good things are good sharpness step down, chromatic aberration corrections, well-defined sun stars, minimum focusing distance, handling and build quality, tiny size and very low weight. Things that are not bad but are not very good either are the comma correction, vignetting and lens distortion. Things with room for improvement is the flare resistance. To make its Voigtländer 15mm f4.5 lens usable on digital sensors, Cosina had to significantly increase its size, which ended in the latest version, the Mark III, being much bigger than its predecessors. Now Laowa managed to create a 15mm f5 lens which is just as small as the older version of Voigtländer 15mm 4.5 Mark II, yet also works properly on digital cameras without color cost issues. And it's cheaper too. What are the compromises that were needed for this? All the versions we tried show a mid-zone dip, so for best performance on high-resolution cameras, stopping down is advisable. The flare resistance is also a bit worse compared to the best ultra-wide-angle lenses we have reviewed. Still, considering its tiny size and fair price, I think this is a very appealing lens to everyone who only rarely needs an ultra-wide-angle lens and doesn't need a faster aperture at this focal length. You will always find a place in your bag for this lens to have it with you whenever you may need it. This makes it a great complement to your standard zoom starting at 28, 24 or even 20mm. As mentioned earlier, this review is also available in written format on our blog, where you will find detailed test charts on sharpness and other characteristics. I have also listed a few alternatives at the end of the article for those interested. A link to the blog post is included in the description below. Huge thanks for watching. Any comments are most welcome. If you liked this video, give it the thumbs up. And for more content like this, please subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Until the next video, have a fantastic time everyone.